Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. In today's video I want to discuss what happens when OCD gets in the way of our recovery and our progress in healing from it. And the reason being is, and this is something I think that I can apply to me in the past, is when I realised I had OCD and anxiety, it became all-consuming because it became part of me. It's like I knew I had this disorder and it stopped me from getting better in a way because it became my personality, part of me, and I just kind of had this acceptance of the fact that this was me now, this was my future. You know, this is just the way I am and I can't do anything about it. And that label, and I think this goes for a lot of things today, they can become all-consuming, that we don't see a way out of it because we label ourselves with a particular thing. You know, we may have got a medical professional diagnose us, or we may have self-diagnosed ourselves. It doesn't really matter, but you know, we can recognize the fact that we actually do suffer from a particular thing, and then it feels like we can't break out of that. You know, we I don't want to say make an excuse because it's difficult. You know, when you suffer from OCD and anxiety, it's extremely devastating at times. You know, it like I said, you know, it takes over your life and it can be torturous. I've been there, and you know, it still gets me from time to time, you know, especially when I'm going through something difficult in my life, and it can really become part of you and you feel like there's no escape. You feel like there's no hope. But I think this is where it's important to remember that you don't have to just take that label of OCD and anxiety and think that there is no way out of this. There is no hope for the future, because that is not true. That is false. It's a belief we may adopt over time because we just can't tolerate it. You know, it's difficult. It's extremely hard when you're going through something like this to see a way out. But I feel like in the past few years, it's something I've struggled with for my entire lifetime. You know, I'm talking 40 years. And I really do now see that I didn't need to accept it as my, you know, a life sentence. It's really not something you have to adopt and think that there is no hope of recovery, because that is just not true. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, whether you, like I said, whether you've had a formal diagnosis or you know you have all the traits of OCD and anxiety, that you can make a change. You know, this doesn't have to be the label that you live by, because I think I did that for quite some time, where I thought, well, I can't do this, can't do that, you know, XYZ, because I have OCD and that'll be too difficult for me. You know, I'm putting barriers in my own way of actually getting better, because I have to do the work, I have to do the uncomfortable stuff to break away from OCD and realize it doesn't have to control my life like it has in the past. I really think once you get that different mindset about it, you can actually make a change, and make a change for the better, because it's going to give your life back. It's, you know, you're not going to have OCD controlling everything, because OCD is very dominating. It'll take over all aspects of your life. And I hate to think of people, you know, going through life like that, thinking that there is no way out, because I know how devastating and the despair and desperation that you will feel when you're really in the thick of it. You know, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling. And the intrusive thoughts, you know, the rumination, the rituals that you may be doing, whether that be physical or mental, it's overwhelming. You know, how do you how do you move forward? But this is a thing, it is possible. We have to recognize that, we do experience OCD, and I always like to keep it separate from myself. And this is, I think, has been helpful for me to really kind of heal and get better, is recognize that, yes, I have OCD, I experience OCD is a better way of putting it, because it's not like we're taking on the personality, of all the OCD traits that we have. We're not just living by it. When we say we experience OCD and anxiety, so we're not actually having those barriers, that label, it's not all consuming. There's a bit of space there to really think, I'm experiencing this and it's difficult, but there is a way forward. And that is when we can start all the therapy towards healing and getting better. And it's challenging. It's not an easy ride. It's not a quick fix either. It takes time and it takes effort, but it's achievable. And I really want to get that message out there that, you may, think that things aren't possible for you, but that's just not the case. We may be more genetically predisposed to OCD. I really do believe that. And our brains work a bit differently to everyone else's. And that self-compassion, is really a big part of this, is recognizing that, this is hard, this is difficult, and that's okay. But we can move forward. We can put the work in and recognize that this doesn't have to be my life going forward. I may experience ups and downs with it, and that's okay, because life is unpredictable and uncertainty is a big part of OCD, doubt, and we want to answer everything. We want to have answers for every question that OCD poses, but we can't have it. And that's a big part of the problem with OCD, is just the constant searching for answers, which we can't have. And that's been a hard thing for me to face in life, is that I can't have certainty. We want it. We want it more than anything. We want ultimate proof that, things are going to be okay, or we have that safety. And someone said it to me, all OCD is the love you have for yourself expressing as fear. And it really rings true to me, that, because, we do care so much with OCD. We're such highly sensitive people, and we're so plugged into the world and everything around us. And it's easily triggered within us, OCD and anxiety, because of the way we are. And that should be a celebrated thing. I can't really say I've spoken to anyone with OCD that I haven't thought, he's such a good, sensitive person. And this is why OCD attacks us, because it goes after what we value the most. And it's difficult, it's hard to navigate, but we can do it. And it takes that time to let those thoughts be there, let them hang out with us, not answer those questions, not giving into it. And, it's going to keep coming back. It's going to keep coming back for us, and just holding firm that we don't need to answer this. We don't need to get certainty, because that's just a trap. It's going to keep us stuck. And that's where we don't want to be, because, like I said, when we live by the label of OCD and we just do everything it wants, it's got us where it wants us. We're stuck. We're not moving forwards. So I hope this video has highlighted to you the fact that maybe you have received an OCD diagnosis or anxiety, but that doesn't have to be your life going forward. You doesn't have to be all consuming. That the fact that you have this label, it doesn't have to become part of you and your personality, that you actually live by it. Because I think that's the danger when we get those diagnoses, or we self-diagnose, that we believe that we can't do the things that we used to do, or the things that other people do, we can't live normally, but we can with the right help and the right kind of therapy, because this is really what broke me out of it, is the fact that I really did connect with someone that was able to teach me metacognitive therapy and detached mindfulness, and it really did start me on a new path, and a path where I want to help others now and really see that there is definitely hope for the future with OCD and anxiety, and you don't have to live by it and live so controlled and in fear, because we can have all of these thoughts, sensations, urges, those rituals that we feel compelled to do. We can have those and not engage and not give it the time and attention that OCD wants. So bear that in mind and let me know what you think about this, because it's definitely achievable to break free from the clutches of OCD and anxiety with the right help and support. So thanks for watching today, and I will see you next time.